Gov. This is your go-to resource for staying engaged on projects across the city, and we encourage residents to follow their favorite project or visit regularly for ongoing opportunities to participate. Next slide. I want to give a shout out to our public lands team for putting on a terrific 4th of July party, July 3rd party at Jordan Park. The drone show was an overwhelming success with nearly 15,000 residents attending this year's event, which is an increase of over 5,900 residents compared to last year. We are grateful for council staff's help in supporting and promoting the event through their social media channels, which helped expand awareness and encourage the community to participate. Next slide. The Waste and Recycling Division is offering multiple free community recycling events throughout the rest of July as part of an EPA recycling grant program. Already passed was the Bike Fix-It Clinic at the Sorensen Unity Center, but upcoming opportunities include collection of hard-to-recycle items, or CHARM, which will take place at Rosewood Park on July 18th, and Plastic-Free July workshops at branch libraries. They've launched a Shape SLC page supporting this effort. All events are listed on this page, which is also soliciting community input around recycling in general. Next slide. The Arts Council has kicked off Mondays in the Park, which is a free summer concert series featuring traditional folk music and cultural dance performances from Utah's diverse communities. Since 1987, the program has celebrated the cultural traditions that enrich our state, bringing audiences together for evenings of live music, dance, and community. We encourage community to bring a lawn chair, blanket, family, and friends to enjoy these free outdoor performances. The first event was yesterday and will continue through August 17th at Liberty Park. Of course, the Arts Council is also busy with the Twilight Concert Series. The next show is July 17th with Freddie Gibbs and will end on October 1st with the War on Drugs. Next slide. Love Your Block, wanted to share a quick update. Projects from the fall 2025 cycle are nearly complete. A few highlights include the Mountains and Monarch mural, which is a beautiful mural depicting mountain landscapes with monarch butterflies, which symbolize transformation, resilience, and hope. It is located on the Sorensen Unity Center next to the entry to Youth City. This mural was created by local muralist Lizzie Wenger with aid of the community. Also, the bottom photo is the Poplar Grove Precinct mural, which was brought to life by another local artist, Kendall Schofield, in collaboration with the Poplar Grove Community Council. This is a new West Side mural featuring peacocks and local wildlife along the Jordan River corridor. This project celebrates the character of Poplar Grove while adding color and vibrancy to a highly visible public space. You can find this on the west wall of the Poplar Grove Precinct. The next round of projects will be announced later this month. If there's no questions, I'll kick it over to Andrew.
Just one general question for the council or the admin to look into at a next briefing would be, in the springtime, we talked about the water conservation efforts that the city corporation has undertaken after the mayor declared stage 2 drought, and then how well the city itself is doing on water conservations. And it would be nice to see get an update on our efforts and the city side, and also the city corporation side, and also the city side. What's the next time?
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. We can bring that back and work on an update.
Thank you.
All right, council members, you can see on the screen, in June, we were functionally full at the homeless resource centers. I say that because the numbers look funky right now. Generally, when we have a decrease in the official beds, but they're overfilled, you get 130% capacity kind of issues, so it looks weird. Just know that they are full, including all of the West Valley ones and the North Temple beds we've had for a while. And there'll be a lot of transition in those beds going forward, with the plan being for the West Valley shelter to become full-time, which it hasn't officially been to this point, and the North Temple one at Ville 1990 transitioning to housing over the next year plus. The other piece here is encampment impact mitigation work and rapid response team work. Again, they've done a great job of catching up on all of their requests, and so really they can probably get to requests within a day or two. So they're taking every weekly scheduling meeting, they're looking at where they think they need to go, but they're also taking everything that comes in every day and trying to get to it as soon as possible. So we highly recommend folks use MySLC app to report issues and concerns and requests for service. Any questions on that? Next slide.
On the micro shelters, I know we got, the Office of Homeless Services got some funding back in June, July sometime to continue on the building of the new buildings. What's the status on those and maybe possible move-in dates for new residents?
So the State Office of Homeless Services opened on that site 50 beds 2 years ago now almost we're looking at. And they had begun construction on the second phase of an additional 50 beds at that location. They halted construction temporarily pending new funding, which they did get to what your point was. And I believe they've restarted construction on the second phase. I don't have an estimated time of opening those, but I can get that back for you.
Great, thank you.
Resource fairs. There was one on the 12th at Library Square. If you've been here on those Fridays, you'll notice it looks a little bit like the Arts Festival in miniature. There's upwards of 40 plus booths. There's hundreds of people there. It's really a big deal. So I recommend if you can get out to those, it's well worth your time. At the last one, we had 22 housing applications completed with the Housing Authority of Salt Lake County, or Salt Lake City, excuse me. And 41 people were seen by the Justice Court, and that includes 124 cases heard on site. 4 donated dental evaluations and extractions. You can see the haircuts, vaccinations by the County Health Department. Really beneficial work being done there. The next resource fair will be on the 17th, same location at Library Square, and this time it'll be co-hosted by the Other Side Village. And a shout out to the Haven for hosting the last one with the Heart team. The last piece is Community Corner, Monday through Tuesdays, 9 to 1 at 7th West 200 South. And we have some smaller providers who are there frequently, and it changes every week. I know Council Member Young, I believe, was scheduled to come see it this next week potentially. So also open to any of you visiting, seeing what's going on there to give you an insight into what you're going to see. The last piece is because of the heat, the county and the city have traditionally in the summertime opened up public spaces like libraries and recreation centers for folks who need to get out of the heat. That's continuing this year. They've extended the hours last week with the heat. So I recommend folks go to those locations for water, bathrooms, shade. I think they were open until 8 p.m. last week to make sure that folks had a place to get inside for. So we're trying to do our best to help with folks this time. Any other questions?
Any questions from council members online? We're also joined online by Councilmember Petro. Sorry I missed you. All right. Thank
No
you so
additional
much.
questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move to our next item, which is an informational Climate Forward SLC plan update. We'll be joined at the table by Austin Kimmel, Council Policy Analyst, Sophia Nichols, Sustainability Deputy Director, and Catherine Weifels, Senior Air Quality and Environmental Program Manager. Austin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, council members. I'll just provide a quick introduction before turning it over to sustainability. This is an informational briefing from Sustainability on Climate Forward SLC, which is an update to the city's climate strategy. Climate Forward SLC seeks to outline strategies to help the city achieve its renewable and energy and carbon emissions reduction goals, which the council established in 2016 and 2019. This is the department's second update to the council, following its first presentation in November of last year. The plan is expected to return to the council later this year or early next year for formal consideration. The goal today is for the council to receive an update on the plan's development and learn more about the plan's existing conditions report, which assesses current and future climate and other environmental challenges. The department will also touch on other steps it is taking as part of the developing plan, and policy questions can be found on page 1 of the council staff report. They include topics about Title II and defining the department's role in city code, coordination with other departments, public engagement, and others. And with that, I will turn it over to Sophia and Catherine.
Thank you for that great introduction.
All right, we'll jump right in. Next slide, please. I'm Catherine Wiffles. So yes, today we just want to go over where we've been, what we've learned throughout this process, and some of the next steps in the plan development. Next slide. Next slide. So Austin already touched on this, but we've established some ambitious goals in the city around achieving 100% renewable energy by 2030 and reducing our emissions by 80% by 2040. And this plan, again, just seeks to reaffirm our commitment to those goals and refresh our approach. Next slide. And as this plan, we leveraged some EPA funding that we received for SL Clear, the Salt Lake Clean Energy Air Roadmap. So this is a climate action plan for the Salt Lake MSA, so Tooele County and Salt Lake County. And it was informed by input from local government, community members, and other experts. And we've leveraged a lot of the work that happened through that process to start developing a plan specifically for Salt Lake City. Next slide. And as part of that process, we created the Environmental Justice Resident Committee. This was a committee representing the West Side, and we learned a lot from them, and we used their input on the SL Clear plan. We're also using a lot of those lessons learned in our own climate action plan. The existing committee doesn't, the original form of this committee doesn't exist anymore, but the next iteration is starting work again, supporting some of the work at the University of Utah. So we're looking for opportunities to engage with them for the next phase of the development of our plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so now what we've learned, next slide. As Austin mentioned, we just finished our existing conditions report. This is a report that summarizes all of our climate hazards, vulnerabilities, the impacts to our community. It includes a greenhouse gas emissions inventory, summarizes the community input process that we went through, and we also assessed all the city plans, policies, and programs that touch on climate. To understand the entire landscape of climate-related work happening here in the city. Next slide. So there's a lot of information in that report. I'm just going to touch on some of the main takeaways really quickly. But our main challenge here in the city is extreme heat. Our city is warming faster than ever. 2025 was our hottest year on record, and 2026 is on track to beat that. And one of the things that we wanted to do is to see how the community is going to be feeling these impacts. So this is just an example. The map you see in this slide is just an example of the heat severity in different areas of the city. So you can see that the west side is disproportionately impacted by extreme heat. Next slide. Drought. Our increasing temperatures are worsening our drought conditions. We've been in drought for 71% of the weeks since 2000, and these conditions are shrinking. The shrinking Great Salt Lake is also worsening those drought conditions by weakening lake effect snow and that hydrological cycle. So it's just creating this dangerous loop. Next slide. Flooding is another common and costly natural disaster here in Utah, and our increasing temperatures is worsening this as well. Our warmer air can hold more moisture, and that's leading to more intense short-duration storms that are overwhelming our stormwater systems. This causes significant damage to infrastructure, homes in the city. And only 5% of residents in Utah carry flood insurance. So it's an impactful condition or situation related to climate. Next slide. Wildfires. So we face an elevated risk of wildfires, as we are well aware. This summer, our fire season is longer and more severe than it's been in the past. It's 100 days longer than it was in the 70s. And this comes, of course, with significant risks to residents, homes and infrastructure, as well as the air quality impacts that come from that. Next slide. So this is just a very brief overview of all the impacts. There's a lot more information in our report. But, all of these impacts pose some serious risks to our community. It is a health and safety risk to all of our community members, especially the frontline community members that are just more vulnerable to these threats. And, it's more difficult to recover from these events as well. The cost of living is going to be impacted, whether it's increasing energy costs, healthcare costs, or insurance costs. All of these things will be impacted. There are also economic impacts. We see that with our ski industry after this winter, but also impacts to agriculture, brine shrimp industry, and also just these extreme weather events can reduce productivity in a lot of industries as well. So there's a lot of different types of economic impacts that can happen from these events. And generally, these climate stressors are going to decrease the quality of life if we don't take action. So a lot of other impacts are listed in our plan, but these are just some of the reasons why we need to be paying attention to these conditions. Next slide. So we asked our community about what they feel about climate, what their understanding is, what kinds of concerns they have, and generally we saw a lot of strong support for the city to engage in climate action. We have the top 5 actions that the city should prioritize are listed here, but reducing air pollution was definitely one of the top actions, but shifting to clean renewable energy and green spaces and trees is another other 2 important ones. Next slide. As far as how to prioritize our actions, residents want to see things that reduce pollution, but they're also interested in actions that have multiple benefits, like pollution reduction, job creation, saving money, those kinds of things. Next slide. And then we also surveyed the business community. We heard that their top concerns related to climate are health and safety of their employees, supply chain disruptions, as well as property and infrastructure damage due to extreme weather. And we also heard that businesses agree that taking action on climate is important for the health of our economy. So we saw some support from that community as well. Next slide. Okay, so those are the main things with our report, and I'll turn the time over to Sophia. If you want these.
All right. So then the question is, what should Salt Lake City do about this, and how organized should we be in planning for climate, both from a mitigation perspective and a climate resiliency perspective, which I'll talk about here in a minute. Next slide. So again, the goals in undertaking this process and bringing it to you all for consideration is that we would like to reaffirm our pre-existing goals from the joint resolution. We would like to prioritize climate strategies that are scalable and equitable, and we would like to understand where there are gaps, either challenges or opportunities. Next slide. So one thing that's important to distinguish is that there are different buckets of work. So oftentimes when we talk about climate action, we're talking about climate mitigation. These are things like supporting renewable energy, actions that reduce our transportation emissions, just all that kind of bucket of work that's around reducing pollution. But it's also important to think about and have some good strategic thought around climate resiliency. So the city itself has always had work that happens in climate resiliency. This is a big part of what the Public Utilities Department does. Of course, the Fire Department, I would say many departments and divisions in the city are working frontline on climate resiliency, but not necessarily, we're not necessarily thinking about it in those ways and organizing it in perhaps ways that we could for transparency's sake. Next slide. So as we are perceiving it in the plan, and certainly as the city itself has done for quite a while, our role in climate action is multifaceted. So first, what are we doing with our municipal operations? And it's important, we believe, to lead by example, transitioning our operations and facilities towards clean and electric alternatives, and adapting our operations to withstand climate impacts. Second is policies. continuing to adopt policies that accelerate renewable energy, energy and efficient electrified buildings, sustainable transportation. Equity, ensuring that our programs and policies benefit the residents with the greatest need and those that are most vulnerable to climate threats, rising energy prices, and other factors. And finally, that climate resiliency and adaptation piece, being thoughtful in how are we doing enough to plan and prepare for the climate impacts that we know are already happening and that are more to come. Next slide. So this process just seeks to organize what we in sustainability already do, but doing it under the umbrella of a plan. And really, it's been a great opportunity to bring departments together to have a lot of these conversations. We've done a lot of internal engagement across departments, both on the mitigation front and the climate resiliency front. So this is just a description of how climate action is already happening across the city. And of course, it's already a priority across many departments that we see reflected in other policies, plans, and programs. And the Climate Forward SLC plan seeks to bring together this work to create a unified framework and identify areas where aligned strategies are needed. Next slide. And then you might be thinking, well, what does it mean to implement a plan? You all are the planning experts, so we look forward to getting your feedback and insight into this. What we are proposing is that this is a framework to guide decisions and helping to direct resources towards effective climate solutions. So it's looking at what we can do with current resources. Certainly, we need to recognize our funding realities when thinking about implementation, just like we do with any plan, right? There's an importance to having a plan in lean times and in more flush times. Helps us be ready for when funding does come, hopefully, again, from the federal government as well as from the private sector, other philanthropic opportunities, as well as just making use of efficiencies within the city itself that we can seek to leverage. And next slide. So looking ahead, we are there at the Gold Star. We did a lot of engagement last summer and fall that Catherine summarized earlier. We did online surveys, we did intercept surveys, we did stakeholder-focused engagement. We spent a lot of time on that existing conditions report because we realized that we had not, there wasn't something like that existed yet. So it's a really great resource. Now we're in the next phase of stakeholder engagement and preparing more detailed strategies to include in the plan. And then we are hoping to bring this back for consideration, probably more like late winter time period. Late 2026, I should say. Next slide. And that's it.
Thank you so much for this presentation. And when you said winter, all I could think about was please include snow. I hope that we have some snow during that period. I'll start with any folks online if there are any questions, and then move to those of us who are in person.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Chair, I would actually like to ask, is there a way without maxing out the capacity of the sustainability department for us to respectfully consult with you as we're working through? I love all of the precepts that you set here and the trajectory you're offering us. I feel like there are decisions that we make that we don't ever see coming. There's things like that I've learned about, like deconstructing projects that might come in front of us for demolition, and that would allow us to mitigate negative environmental impacts. And is there a way for us to consult with you as things evolve without damaging your capacity that would allow us to not just follow in these footsteps, but also maximize opportunities as they arise in front of us?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you. I think that's exactly what we're hoping to do through this plan, is to just have that conversation about, are there gaps, are there opportunities where we can either share what we're already doing or be in alignment on anything further that's needed. We do have ordinances and policies in place that exist prior to this plan that are going to continue to exist, including around construction and demolition, waste, including around energy benchmarking, and a variety of other things. So we still have a body of ongoing work that we already do, but I think, yes, we're definitely looking forward to that conversation if you have any specifics you'd like to share with council staff or us. Yeah.
All right, I'll look into the room for questions. We'll start with Councilmember Napier Pierce.
Thank you so much. This is terrific. I'm just wondering if there are opportunities for grants. Is that part of your policy to be kind of exploring other relationships like the Bezos grant that you just got and other, federal grants if that ever happens again?
Yes, and that's a big reason why we think having this plan that hopefully is something that you'll want to adopt can be so helpful, because oftentimes having an adopted climate plan is the foundation for being competitive with all sorts of different types of grants. And we do see our function as the department supporting the entire city team in applying for and thinking strategically and working on grants. And we were very busy in 2023 through today, so including supporting the Bezos one that just came in. So yes, that we do think that that's a big reason to have the plan. Yeah. And we're also looking at other more creative funding solutions that we've seen other cities across the country use. And so we're hoping to provide some of that, some of those ideas in the plan as well.
Thank you for the briefing, and I appreciate all the great work. We're leading the way in the state from right here in your department, so I appreciate all that. And so I also wanted, how do we take our plan and see if we can bring other cities, because we're all attached to each other. We all have the same, UTA does not just operate in Salt Lake City. How do we get the more buses? How do we get more resiliency and even the mitigation side of the house? Because the climate doesn't know the boundaries. So how do we take this and move it forward to the next level as far as the state is concerned on funding? And how can we help you do that through the league or through Utah Clean Energy or other places so that our dollar goes further than just in Salt Lake City? Because if you look at that heat map, our heat map for the west side it's red, but that's probably red all the way down I-15 to St. George and beyond. So how do we help ourselves help them too, and work through that at the county, state, Wasatch Front regional area?
I think having this as an example, Salt Lake City is often the example for other communities in Utah. So I think that first and foremost is useful to be able to hopefully show them something that's simple and current and provides that those best practices. And then we very much are always working to collaborate as much as possible across Salt Lake City boundaries. Clearly, Utah Renewable Communities is the biggest example of that. Most recently, I think our urban agriculture and our food programs certainly cross Salt Lake City boundaries, electrified transportation, transit. As part of the EPA grant that we referenced in the beginning, that was a regional plan, and we did convene governments from across the Salt Lake County and Tooele County area. So we want to continue to do that and are looking forward to having some more tangible things we can talk about. But I will say we did develop some blueprints out of that process that are a little more bite-sized. So
okay, thank you.
We'll share them with you, and you guys can share them in all of your networks.
Yes, right, exactly. That's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, I just want to express my profound appreciation to your team for gathering any consultants that were involved in this, gathering the existing conditions report, which frankly was really sobering. And I think any of us over the past few weeks, from fires to heat to continuing scarcity in terms of our water resources, extremely sobering. And so I appreciate the work that you've done in putting together that report. And I'm sure somebody wise said something along the lines of nothing can be changed until it's first faced. And so I feel like by helping us face those realities, we can adapt our future. And so thank you for your work, and I'll be looking forward to receiving updates as the plan progresses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move on to our next item, item number 3, which is an ordinance regarding the ballpark zoning map and text amendment. We'll be joined at the table by Kate, council policy analyst, Sarah, senior planner, David, principal planner, and Chrissy Gilmore, planning manager. And looks like we've also got McKenna and Hayden from the CRA available for questions. Kate.
Great, thank you. In December 2025, the CRA board adopted the Ballpark Next Community Design Plan. This rezone application that's before you today establishes zoning regulations in alignment with that plan. There are 3 major changes included in it, and I will let planning staff review that. A few items before we turn it over to them. Planning staff does recommend approval of this. Planning Commission had a public hearing on March 11th, where 7 members of the public spoke in opposition of this item, noting a desire for more public green space, public safety concerns, and additionally concerns about the height and the land use of a hotel. The Planning Commission did vote positively 5-2 to recommend approval to you as the City Council to consider approval, and the commissioners who were opposed noted that they were not a fan of the height allowed in MU11. There is a policy discussion before you today. The City Council may wish to discuss the differences between MU11 and MU8. It has been discussed in small group meetings and with the public, and consideration for you about which zone may be best for the ballpark community. The comments have expressed concern that MU11 may be allowed too much height and may set a precedent for the adjacent properties to also upzone to that level. MU8 would allow development of mixed-use areas while facilitating an appropriate transition to the surrounding neighborhoods. If the council is in favor of modifying to MU8, it would be helpful for planning staff if you considered a straw poll today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah and David.
Thank you, Kate. So this is a rezone for the city-owned property that includes the former baseball stadium and the parking lot to the north. You can go to the next slide. So this slide identifies the areas that are affected. The total area is 14.8 acres. The parking lot to the north is shown as F, and that's about 4.3 acres. And then the area to the south of 1300 South is about 10.5 acres. And next slide. So this proposal was initiated by the mayor, and as was said earlier, the applicant is the CRA. The proposal is to implement the Ballpark Next Community Design Plan and includes map and text amendments. This shows the existing zoning, which is public lands, and then RMF 35, which is residential multifamily with a maximum height of 35 feet. And then the text amendments allow for additional height for buildings with frontage on the south side of 1300 South, and also remove the ballpark sign overlay, which is in the public land section of the sign chapter. So next slide. And so this shows the existing conditions. On the left is the stadium, and then the right is that parking lot to the north. Next slide. And then these images show the existing zoning on the left and then the proposed zoning on the right. The majority of the area is proposed to be rezoned from public lands to MU11, and then the RMF 35 zoned area would be rezoned to MU5. And then there's a split zoned parcel that would be rezoned to a combination of MU11 and MU5. and then the CRA eventually plans a subdivision of the properties. As far as the proposal, the existing public lands zoning is much more limited than the proposed zoning districts, and the primary purpose of that zone is for other public buildings and uses. And RMF 35 allows for multifamily uses, but not at the height or the density that's proposed. So the next slide. And then the text amendments to the MU11 zone would allow buildings with frontage on the south side of 13th South to have that height up to 150. And then the buildings on 13th South would also need to meet the enhanced active use requirements. And these only apply to the block between West Temple and Main Streets. Next slide. And then as part of the rezoning process, staff identified 3 key considerations for their review, whether it implemented city plans and policies. And then we also looked at the Ballpark Next plan and the compatibility with nearby properties. And staff found it to be consistent with Plan Salt Lake, the Thriving in Place plan, the 2022 Ballpark Station Area Plan, the Ballpark Next plan, which is the long-term vision for the site. And so that concludes staff's presentation. And as was said earlier, staff from the CRA are also here and able to answer questions.
Thank you so much. We'll start with folks online to ask if there are any questions.
I do.
Please proceed. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank
Councilmember
you.
Young.
I appreciate it. So I think my question is going to be related to the height requirement that's being proposed. Can we hear about how MU11 was identified and the need for the 150 feet along 1300 South? Like, what are our goals within that? Because from my vantage point, that seems very different than the existing zones that are in the area on the surrounding parcels as well.
Yes, so the MU11 zone allows for up to 125 feet, and then there are some areas within the zone that it can go up to 150 feet. As far as the plan itself and how that was identified, I'd like to go ahead and turn that over to the CRA to answer that question. I think there's enough room for Hayden here.
Good afternoon, council members. Hayden Calloway with the CRA. To answer your question about how this was identified, in the plan on 1300 South, we do allow, the plan was adopted to allow heights up to 150 feet, some buildings maybe up from 120 to 150 feet, and MU11 was the only zone that allowed that height.
Got it. So, I mean, okay, I'm trying to, I guess, understand a little bit more of like the rationale of like, what are we hoping to achieve there with that additional height? Like, is this to allow for more like places to live? Like, what are we going for within that additional request?
Yeah, the goal of just the plan itself was to allow for just increased density in the area. So that would result in either more residential units, more height to allow for with the development potential and to increase that in line with the Ballpark Station Area Plan as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. I will just share for council's consideration. So I do have concerns about the MU11. I would say especially just in proximity to the single family residential that is like right behind that stadium. And you know, normally when I'm looking at like heights, I'm usually trying to figure out like, do we have like a traditional like step down zone? I think the proximity is a concern of mine. And so I guess I just wanted to share that that's a concern that I have related to the request for MU11, whereas I feel like MU8 feels like we would still be achieving a significant amount of density in that space without necessarily going up to the full 150. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments from online?
I'm good, but amplify everything Councilwoman Young just said.
Thank you, Councilmember Petro. Move towards in the room. Any questions, comments from folks here at the table in the room?
So from your answer, I'm getting it's not that there's like one particular component of the plan that would be excluded by MU11, or we excluded by MU8.
Yeah. We,
5, 11, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And discussing with planning, like the land uses are virtually the same and would still allow us to, go forward with the goals of the plan if it was rezoned to MU8 instead of MU11.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to point out one little item. There is a transition area between the proposed MU11 and the single-family homes of MU5, just a small portion that the plan calls out as, I believe, townhomes, just so there's awareness of that MU5 area.
Thanks, Kate.
Any other questions? Well, I just want to express my appreciation to all the staff, city staff, both CRA and planning, who has worked on this rezone. And I know that this Ballpark Next process is going to be a very long and ongoing process as we reimagine the future of that space. And so I really want to express my profound appreciation to everybody who has brought us to this stage of the process. I know we've got future stages. Those are down the line, but thank you for your work up to this stage. I just want to express that I'm excited about this plan. I'm excited about the Ballpark Next plan that was adopted and approved by the City Council. I'm in favor of the MU8 rezone because it is in alignment with that plan, but also because it does not, it's more in alignment with the existing zoning that is around the ballpark site. I feel pretty strongly that rezone to an MU8 achieves what was outlined in the plan without necessarily triggering an upzone of adjacent nearby parcels that are not publicly owned as these parcels are. One thing I would like to state for the record, I know we've stated this before in previous conversations about the Ballpark Next plan, but is the current plan to continue to maintain public ownership of those lands with the execution of possible execution of long-term ground leases as we move towards redevelopment.
Yeah, is that a question? Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
That is a priority that was discussed even last year as the plan was being adopted, that you as a board had communicated, and that's the lens we are looking at as we go through the disposition RFP process with these properties. But those will be brought to you as a board as well as we go through that process.
Thank you, Hayden. I know we previously discussed it, but I just want to reiterate it again because I think when people hear redevelopment, they think, oh, the city's going to sell off all of this land. And just to reiterate that this continues to mean public ownership of those lands in terms of city owning it. And the last thing I'd love to just emphasize is the connection between the Ballpark Next plan and the agenda item we heard about earlier just before this one, which was climate impacts. And really wanting us as we move forward with the implementation of the Ballpark Next plan to think about opportunities for maximizing green space. I know that in the plan there was a mention of green roofs. I know that there's an opportunity to really think creatively as we reimagine the site to also think about the climate impacts that we can mitigate in the redesign of it. So I just wanted to mention that. I see we have a straw poll. Any other comments before we move towards the straw poll? All right.
I will propose a straw poll because I agree with your comments there and the other comments from Councilmember Young and Petro. So I propose a straw poll to determine the support for rezoning all parcels currently proposed for MU11 to MU8.
All right,
So,
show your feelings. And for those folks online,
My thumbs up.
Councilmember Petro?
Thumbs up.
All right, I think that's all of us in favor of that straw poll and to MU8. All right, thank you so much. Okay. Next on our item is item number 4, which is a text amendment for short-term rental business licenses follow-up. Allison Rowland will join us at the table, council policy analyst, and we're also joined by Arturo Garcia, who's the director of finance operations. And looks like we've got a special guest, our city attorney, Kelly, Mark Cottrell. I just saw Mark and I just wanted to say Mark, but Cottrell, sorry.
You can call me what you like. That's true.
Also joining us at the table. Council Policy Analyst Allison, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. As all of you may recall, in the FY27 budget, you approved a new short-term rental ordinance. Since then, concerns have been raised by some owners of these properties. So this is arranged as a follow-up conversation for you with the administration to be able to clarify any pending questions, discuss any potential options for changes to the ordinance. Summary information on the changes adopted with the budget can be found in attachment C1 of the staff report, and there are some potential policy questions there as well. I will turn it over to Arturo if you have a presentation or want to speak about.
I think there were some questions that were asked to clarify. One was the requirement behind the local contact. And so having somebody available to address general issues and be able to respond within 2 hours can definitely help alleviate some of those costs to other departments within the city. And these are general questions that can be addressed, whether it's a parking issue or a noise complaint, or any just issue regarding the property as well. So that was one of the concerns. And now, 2 hour may be reasonable. It's reasonable for many issues, as I discussed. If council would like to take into account shortening that time, we can look into that.
Excuse me, Arturo. Thank you. Madam Chair, I wonder if it would be helpful maybe just to take a step back, set the table. Would it be helpful to revisit the ordinance and sort of what it purports to do? And then we can, from there, perhaps address any questions that council may have? Great. I'm happy to do that if you like, Arturo.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Chapter 5.13 is a new ordinance meant to deal with the licensing of short-term rentals. It addresses, I would say, and a lot of this is taken from the one-pager in your materials on C1, but I see it addressing 6 sort of areas. Number one is sort of the applicability. Where is this, or what it's applicable, right? What short-term rentals are, or what dwellings are applicable? And it's going to be any dwelling, even a partial dwelling that is rented out for less than 30 days where short-term rentals are currently permitted. It doesn't change where they're permitted. The zoning stays the same. It's just where they're permitted. Second item might be the license requirement. What is required there? We're establishing or creating a license requirement. So number one, those who want to offer a short-term rental must obtain a license. It is unlawful for someone to operate, maintain, advertise, or allow someone to maintain that without a license. And each unit offered as an STR, as a short-term rental, I'll use STR, must have a separate license. And only one license per person under code or entity who's allowed to sort of offer a short-term rental. We are creating application standards, and this gets to the item that Arturo was mentioning earlier. Those applying for a short-term rental must provide an address and description of the dwelling unit. They must provide proof of legal ownership and authority to operate a short-term rental. And as part of that, if they're part of an HOA or condominium association, they must show that they also have the approval and ability and consent from those organizations to offer a short-term rental. An applicant must also provide contact information for themselves, the property owner, and the local contact person that Arturo was mentioning. That local contact person must be available 24 hours a day, be able to receive text messages, reside or have an office within Salt Lake County, and be able to respond to concerns raised by the city within 2 hours. We are also creating limits and restrictions on short-term rentals. One of those is that short-term rentals are limited in multifamily buildings to 10% of available units. So if you have a multifamily building with 30 units, no more than 3 would be eligible as a short-term rental. If you have a multifamily building and there's less than 10, you're allowed 1 unit as a short-term rental. And on that, if there's sort of a backlog, I guess the city would create a wait list for those who wanted to offer a short-term rental but were unable to because of the 10% limitation in that multifamily building. Licenses may not be issued or renewed if there are multiple unresolved, like nuisance citations, violations, et cetera. So if someone has a history of those kinds of citations on the property and they apply for a short-term rental, they may not get licensed for that, or if they currently have one, they may not be renewed. Now, if there's consistent, and we'll get down to inspection enforcement about repeated violations. Operation standards, we're establishing operational standards for short-term rentals. So short-term rentals must abide by fire and building code, especially occupancy limits. 1 off-street parking stall for the exclusive use of a short-term rental must be provided. There is a 2-night minimum required for someone letting out a short-term rental, and also a 200-night maximum per short-term rental unit, 200-night per year maximum. Also, short-term rental units must comply with noise, waste, nuisance, building standards, transient room taxes, records regarding compliance and nights rented, and provide their license number in all advertisements. Those are some of the operational standards. With respect to an inspection enforcement, the city may review these applications with fire and building services. If there are violations of a short-term rental, if they're violating Chapter 5.13, they can receive a $1,000 civil penalty for every 7 calendar days where that violation is present. Licenses can be suspended or revoked for repeated violations under the code. So that's a brief summary of what this ordinance purports or aims to do. And so I think that might be helpful just to set the table and see if you have any questions about that.
Thank you so much. I see Councilmember Young has a question, and then we'll move to Councilmember Petro for any questions before moving to folks in the room.
Great, thank you. So I should have asked this question sooner, so apologies. But one of the things that I think as we've been mulling over these now changes is our ability to enforce all of these different criteria. So like the one that jumps out at me is the 200 days. Like how does that even translate into like something that would be enforceable? Is it based on a neighbor noting that from their perception it's been occupied more than 200 days? I guess I'm just curious about what that looks like logistically.
If I may, I don't know if Mary Beth or Arturo have perspectives on that. It's my understanding, and I'm filling in for an attorney who worked on this, but it's my understanding that certainly there can be complaints that could lead to investigations, or the city may have information or records to determine whether or not violations have occurred. So, for example, under the operational standards information that I provided, or was that the inspection enforcement? Well, one
does require them to keep a log. So it does require them to keep a log of the nights that they rented. So if civil enforcement requests that information, that they're required to provide that, the log.
Okay, and that's helpful. I guess it leads me to, based on some other short-term rental conversations and enforcement that we've had, that feels like something that would be easy to like pull together that may not be reflective of the true practice. And I guess as I look at it from a city perspective, it's challenging to gather records to like assert whether or not that log is accurate or not. So it's not a deal breaker, I guess, but I just, I know in the short-term rental space that even in like the constituent issues that we've had in the Sugar House area, sometimes it's difficult to provide enforcement on our existing code. And so to see all of these new requirements, I'm just trying to like wrap my head around what that looks like and what our city capacity is to be able to provide that structure and enforcement. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I'll just note that as sometimes my attorneys are involved in some of these enforcement actions before our city boards, and certainly these can become factual questions for a hearing officer to determine, and the strength of the evidence or lack thereof is certainly noted by hearing officers in my experience.
Thank you, Councilmember Young. Councilmember Petro, any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. My question is, when we were talking about the multifamily, so my interest in this ordinance is in restricting short-term rentals in so much as they artificially inflate the pricing in our housing market, but I do want to keep it as a tool, especially for people who might find themselves on the verge of housing insecurity. So I'm thinking of, single moms, maybe elderly, people who are on fixed incomes who could either leverage the whole of their property or a room within their property via a short-term rental option. So as we were talking about the multifamily, is that referring explicitly to multifamily properties that are only owned by one entity? Or would a condo that has multiple owners be subject to those same quota?
It's my understanding, reading the ordinance, that it would apply to not just a single entity owning one building, but like a condominium as well, where there's multiple owners.
I have to tell you, I am fervently against that. I'm watching in lots of places where either there's one entity that might own several parcels within a building or just shows up to more meetings, and it really creates a lack of equity among the owners and users of the property. So I would really like to revisit that portion of the ordinance and go deeper on that. I also am not fully convinced that the 2-night rule ameliorates the partying that we want to. I'm open to persuasion around it, but I'm not fully convinced on that. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Moving to folks in the room. Questions? Councilmember Dugan and then Councilmember Wharton.
Can you talk about the 2-night minimum and the 200-night maximum? What's the reasoning on those? Why have a minimum or a maximum?
Certainly, and I am happy to defer to those who may have been more involved in the discussion, but my understanding is that a 2-day minimum aims to reduce rentals that are done solely for a single party purpose. Now, whether that actually occurs or not, I think that's to be seen, but I think that was the goal behind the 2-day minimum. With respect to the 200 nights, it's my understanding that that was chosen because most of these dwellings were initially instituted as meant to be housing for individuals, and not a hospitality purpose. So they're fundamentally built originally for a housing purpose, not a hospitality purpose, and that this 200-night maximum for short-term rental is meant to ensure that the units are used for housing, not short-term rental, for at least a third of the year. That is what I've been told, but I don't know if there's any additional considerations that were contemplated.
Yeah, it also reduces noise level, like Mark said, and parking issues as well, traffic for the neighbors that are, as if we have more one-night stays, there'd be more foot traffic in that area.
Thank you.
Just kind of extended, is this, we didn't come up with these numbers. Was it coming from, is there a national standard or national level that says, hey, a lot of cities have 2 nights and 200 nights? Or is that Salt Lake City decided, hey, we're going to go with 2 nights and 200 nights? And I can't believe that we came up with the numbers, and I'm just saying, they were born from somewhere, just like the 2 hours was born from somewhere. And is that the standards across the United States in short-term rentals, if there is a standard of type of rental?
Councilmember Dugan, that's a great question. I am not sure where the numbers came from. I'm not sure if anyone up here has that information.
We did look at other cities and what has worked and what has not worked. This is where Catherine, who I work with, provided me that information that showed me things that, that worked in other cities in preventing this noise level and reducing it.
And is it in Utah, is it the 200, does like Park City or Moab have the 200-night minimum on their places, or in the areas that have a lot of short-term rentals?
I don't know if I have the information of that, but we can look into it.
We'll look into it.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just, because there's been we get a lot of questions, like people are saying, hey, I got a short-term rental and you're only allowing me to work, 2/3 of the nights of the year. And so my business is closed more than any other business, in a year. Some businesses close on a Sunday, Monday, and I'm closing for, 100+ days instead of that many, or 65 days. So that's a question for me. And then also just the 2 nights out of the house is that, does other cities across the Wasatch Front have similar restrictions or availability? Not so much to fall in line with everybody else, but also to understand where that boundary lies in this short-term rentals. We don't have, number-wise, we have a lot of short-term rentals. Percentage of our home residencies, it's low, but numbers-wise, it's high. So I just want to get that, and how we also enforce both those 2-night minimum. How are we checking that one out? Again, it's an ordinance. We have a law, but we have no way of enforcing it.
Councilmember Dugan, do you only want Utah cities, or would you prefer Utah and other cities as well?
Probably both. Utah, but also similar states. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we can provide that
Yeah,
for you.
that'd
Thank
be
you.
nice.
And then it looks like Councilmember Napier Pierce, and then Luhua, do you have a comment? Okay, great.
Thank you so much. How many short-term rentals are in Salt Lake City right now?
We've only issued 2 licenses since July 1st.
Okay. Like you, I've been approached by a number of people who are very concerned about this. They made significant strategic investments to have a short-term rental as part of their financial portfolio. It's hard to gauge, though, what the scale is, and if we do need to tinker with this ordinance a little bit. I'm wondering if you've explored grandfathering in existing short-term rentals. The problem will be, because we haven't licensed them before, we don't know, really, right? So I don't know that I have a question. Thank you.
Back to Councilmember Wharton, and then Luhua.
So I think, given the housing shortage, given the fact that we would prefer that these units be used for housing, especially, that's why we created the zones, allowing a certain number, but overall, the reason why we don't allow them citywide is because of the housing. Do we have any, estimates? Because, I don't know that there could be a formal way of measuring, how much it competes with housing units. Do we know that from other cities or studies or anything like that?
We don't have that, but we could try and find that.
Yeah, I wonder if any other cities have, maybe that do allow it citywide, or I don't know how you would even cross-check that data, but I met with some constituents recently who were operating one and who aren't in one of these zones where it's allowed. We talked about the housing issue, as one of the reasons, or maybe the chief reason why it's not allowed citywide. And they had that question, just, how much does it compete with housing? And the answer I gave, and I know anecdotally, is just from ones that have been in my neighborhood or constituents that have called multiple times about units, and I happen to know roughly what the unit looks like and how big it would be. And so I can estimate what I think from anecdotes, but it would be nice to have more information if there's any way to get that. And then I am a little concerned. There's definitely more than 2 of these in Salt Lake City. How can we make sure that people are going through the licensing program, or encouraging them to? Like, will this be... I know we can't use, because of the state law preemption, and I haven't looked at the statute for a while. I wonder, does the wording in the statute preclude the city from using a website to contact owners to tell them about the new licensing requirement? Would that be allowed, or would that run afoul of the preemption ordinance? Because if we can do that and just email those individuals, even if, not every single one of them responds, I would imagine a significant number of them would want to come into compliance if they're in an area that's allowed and all that.
So Councilmember Wharton, we could look at the language to see if there is any kind of prohibition, but I think what you're speaking to also speaks to sort of an educational outreach type of campaign to ensure that perhaps there's incentives for people to get licensed and be on the right side of the ordinance. Certainly we can have those discussions internally about the best ways to achieve that.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to note, because there are a number of questions that relate to enforcement, that I think up until this point, or up until June of this year, most of the enforcement interaction resided within CAN. And if the council has mentioned in the past that there were new enforcement officers added to the city for this issue, for short-term rental issues, those were in the Department of Community and Neighborhoods. This ordinance now is a licensing requirement that has a different realm of enforcement that would be within finance and business licensing. So probably as the conversation proceeds, it would also help to just map out where different things would be, how they would be enforced and by which department. And so I just wanted to note that for the record, and also clarity of who might follow up on some of the issues council members are raising.
Thank you for that. I will just name that what I think many of us feel is that we're balancing multiple interests here. We're balancing a real housing shortage, and we're balancing a market and financial reality that short-term rentals exist. They are here, people use them, along with the challenge of how do we know which ones are there, and are they registering as short-term rentals, and enforcement. One part of the ordinance that I am in favor of is a requirement that there is somebody local to Salt Lake County who can immediately respond to requests. I feel like that's a really important part of the ordinance to ensure both health and safety, but also to respond to nuisance complaints. I know we've heard from a number of people on both sides of this issue, both those who are owners and operators of short-term rentals, but I've also heard from neighbors who said, I'm glad that the city is trying to move in this direction because it has a real impact on neighborhoods where these are operating either legally or illegally outside of the zone. So I appreciate that we are moving towards hopefully finding a ground in which we can satisfy as many of these interests and concerns as possible.
So in terms of next steps, what is the council's preference? We could take the feedback that we've heard and work with the administration on some potential adjustments to the ordinance, and then schedule it for another briefing, probably in August-ish. Does that work? Or what?
Councilmember Wharton?
I mean, I don't feel, I guess, can we move forward with these changes today? Or with these changes, not today, but like with these updates, or would we put these on hold? Because these are just to the fee schedule, right?
No, I'll start and then.
Okay.
Or go ahead, Mark.
No,
That'd be
you're,
great.
beginning July 1, Chapter 5.13 was published, so it is part of the city code.
It is in effect.
Right, okay. But we're revisiting it today and we're talking about additional changes. So I'm wondering, would the things that we're talking about today be on hold until additional changes come, or can we move forward with them?
The council would need to tell us how you would like to proceed.
I would like to move forward with these changes. I don't necessarily want to wait on these because we're trying to correct something that was inadvertently left out. I want to get that in as soon as possible. And if there are future changes,
But
consider those as
there
well.
are some things, for example, like the 2-night minimum was included in what went into effect July 1st.
Right.
So where there's some interest on the council, perhaps to change that,
Right.
if you could just give us clarity on, do you want the 2-night minimum to go forward until a ordinance amendment is brought back?
Yes.
So you want what was put into effect July 1st to be fully in effect
Yes.
until changes? Thank you.
Yes.
Wholesale?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Others?
I think it would help to have a straw poll from the council, if that would be okay, just so that we're really clear on whether everyone is in agreement with that or whether we want to pick apart the different elements.
Well,
Councilmember
will you
Dugan?
say it for me again? Because when I said it, Dan Dugan was shaking his head. But when you said it, he was okay with it. So,
Well,
I was shaking my head because went into effect on July 1st. So
Right.
there's no change. We can't change anything right now because it just went into effect. So we have to come back with a revised ordinance and go through that process on a revised ordinance. I'm okay with putting this in effect, but I also don't want to kick our discussion down too far because this is, it's going to take effect for a little while. Well, there's only
Yeah.
2 locations that actually have licenses, so it's going to affect 2 businesses legally at this point. So I'm okay with going into effect now, but let's look at our changes and the questions we have. We have a bunch of questions, let's get those answered, so then we can say, hey, we'll keep what we have, or we want to modify it with a new ordinance.
I do think we would need to hear from the administration if that's possible. So a license would be issued to anyone coming in to get it now under certain regulations. And then when you pass an ordinance amendment, would those licenses automatically have new regulations attached to them? Do you know what I mean? I think we just need some clarity on if that's possible.
well, and this is the reason why I would like to go forward the way that I had proposed, is that I think if we decide to eliminate like a 2-night minimum, it doesn't matter whether they're already licensed or not, or we decide to eliminate a 200-night cap, it doesn't matter whether they're licensed or not. And I don't want to send the mixed message to owners of these units that the council passed something and then they thought about making more changes. So I don't know, do I wait now or do I want people to come and start getting licenses now while it's in the news, while it's in the conversation. And if we subsequently make changes, then based on what I've heard today, those changes would just remove some of the existing regulations, not add new ones.
Can I, Councilmember Wharton, can I ask you though, maybe it's just such a high level symbolic concern. Do you think, I hear you and I share your eagerness for people to register and to get their business licenses. But we've clearly pointed out here that there's very, very flawed mechanisms for enforcement, if any at all, and the ordinance needs to work. Do you think it damages our credibility if we've already admitted that we can't enforce on this ordinance to be recruiting people? I think we should tighten up some of these holes and then do a comprehensive sweep trying to get people to register. But that also might just be some like hypothetical high level, preference for when we might get the most? I don't know. I'm open to your feedback on it.
I mean, to me, it may have been ideal to do that at one point, but now, I've already had multiple people, and I mentioned constituent meetings. I've already had constituents reach out with questions. I've already talked to community councils about it. Like, the cat's out of the bag. And even though I know on a lot of these we don't have maybe like an investigation mechanism, but I would disagree that we don't have an enforcement mechanism, because if somebody does make a report to the city and we do find that they're violating some of these terms, then we could not renew. We might. I said the last time we talked about this, I wish we had a lot more regulatory authority. I wish we had a lot more local control over this. I understand it's not a national monument, but I do think we should be able to have some control over these things in the housing crisis. And so, so I would like to be able to use the tools that we have and be able to move forward when there are repeated nuisances or when there are reports that the rules are being violated. I think it actually could be worse if we kind of do this like multi-phase rollout. So.
But Councilmember Wharton, I mean, you were asking how many housing units would be displaced by short-term rentals. I mean, do you think there's a need for a little bit more data? Could we continue to refine this as we, even though it's enforceable now, right?
Right, but I think we can't, I think it's I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but either you're in the zone now where you can do it or you're not. And whether or not people are coming forward and getting their license when they should or shouldn't, like, that's not going to change, because if we were to limit the zones where we allow them now, like, that's already a problem, right? Because they would say, this is something I've been allowed to do, you're interfering with my business, so I think that again, to reuse the cat's out of the bag analogy, like, they're already permitted where they are, and those businesses that are operating are already operating, whether they have the paper or not. And so I think that if we were to limit the number or limit the zones, like, we're not going to save ourselves any headache, because they're going to have the same, substantively their complaints are the same, which is that I was allowed to do this and now I'm not.
So I'm hearing we have a lot of things before us and possibly some mixed feelings among us on the council. Lehua, I would be curious if you would be willing to restate that straw poll, just so we can get a gauge of where we are.
Of course, I will try.
Thank you.
So what the council approved that was published on July 1st would be in effect. And if the council wanted to consider some amendments, that we would return to you with those amendments for a future briefing and a new ordinance that you could adopt to make changes. But until that time, what was approved and published July 1st would be in effect.
Yes.
Is that your straw poll?
Mm-hmm.
That's a straw poll. All right, show your feelings. Wow. Thank you.
Chris's straw poll.
Councilmember Young, Petro.
I'm a thumbs up.
I'm okay with that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully that provides a little bit of direction for the future of this.
I think so. Okay.
Thank you, council members.
Thank you, staff, and thank you, council members and council staff, for helping us move through that muddled process. We are now moving on to our next item, which is item 5, ordinance, a 6-year capital asset plan. We'll be joined at the table by Kate, Council Policy Analyst, and Mike Atkinson, Capital Asset Planning Manager.
Thanks. We're actually going to have Mary Beth and Rachel here with us, and Mike is here for questions. So we have a whole team for this. The Capital Asset Plan, or CAP plan, as you will be hearing it referred to, provides details and prioritization guidance for the general plan capital asset needs for fiscal years 2027 through 2032. Finance, the mayor's office, and city departments have been working extensively to create this proposed $1.5 billion six-year capital asset plan. The plan provides an overall picture of the future general fund spending on extensive maintenance, expansion, and new improvements. Improvements outlined in the CAP plan include areas such as streets, bridges, buildings, parks, traffic lights, sidewalks, and other public areas. The CAP plan is located in the CIP book, or the Capital Improvement Book, which you received along with the mayor's recommended budget book, and is available online as well. If adopted, the CAP plan will be updated annually, and it is proposed to be updated at the same time as the CIP project allocations on August 25th. A couple policy considerations for you to consider: potentially discussing metrics to measure the CAP plan's success as it's implemented, and also the council may discuss if the proposed projects equitably serve the city and if any neighborhood areas need attention. With that, I'll turn it over to Mary Beth.
Thank you, Council. Can you please bring up the capital asset plan PowerPoint? Thank you. Next slide, please. Good afternoon, Council. I'm excited to share the capital asset plan with you. This plan has taken 3 years to complete, and I'm incredibly proud of what the city has accomplished. I want to begin by thanking staff across the entire organization for their contribution in bringing this plan forward today. The development and project management of this plan truly moved through all 4 stages of team formation described by Bruce Tucker. So you can look it up. And I know this sounds a little formal and not like me, but I kind of wanted to do this because I am truly proud of this. With the outstanding support of IMS's project manager, Liz Bueller, we built a strong team and produced a comprehensive plan that we are pleased to present to you. We are presenting a 6-year general fund capital asset roadmap built around 2 core priorities: protecting and renewing our existing capital assets and making targeted investments to support growth and service needs. This plan establishes a matrix that guides prioritization and funding alignment for general fund capital asset. It also provides a framework that will help the general fund prioritize the CIP projects that come forward for review. Next slide, please. So I kind of wanted to give you the current landscape of the CIP. So $165 million is in the CIP fund as of December 2025. That includes funding sources from the general fund, Funding Our Future, Transportation Fund, Class C, Impact B, bond fund proceeds, and $29 million of encumbered funds. This represents 437 appropriation and budget line items and supports more than 600 general fund projects. Next slide, please. When developing the new capital asset plan, we had to consider how it would inform the general fund and define the primary roles of the plan. That process led us to create the flow chart shown here. So when we were going through this, we wanted to make sure that we encompassed the whole thing and that the capital asset plan fed into the CIP plan. But we also needed to ensure that all master plans fed into the capital asset plan, so we didn't leave that out. So that's what this is showing you here, is the master plans 6-year division and the capital maintenance program go into the capital asset plan, and CRA and public utilities create their input into this, which goes to the CAP committee. The CAP committee is comprised of every department, including public utilities and CRA, because we wanted it holistic and making sure that we were not stepping on anyone's toes, and also making sure that we were not bringing forth a project to you in CIP that public utilities didn't have on their plan for 10 years. And we've seen it, and I've seen it several times, so we wanted to make sure it's all encompassing and that the entire capital asset committee approved these projects in the CIP as we move them forward. And then the CAP committee votes, they put it to the CDCIP board, the CDCIP board ranks it, and then it comes to the mayor's office and then to you. Any questions on that process? Great. The executive summary provides a high-level overview of the types of projects included in the plan, indicating whether each project is a replacement, an improvement, or a new asset. Across the entire 6-year period, the total cost is $1.5 billion. The plan will be updated annually to ensure it continues to meet the needs of the general fund. And I'll just give you a little bit of time to look this over. This is also in the CIP book. It's at the back of the book. Like I said, we're very proud of this plan. Any questions on this slide?
Council members? Councilmember Young, anything coming up for you so far?
No, I will, I guess, reflect it is very well done, and probably to the point that it deserves a little more review before commenting on any specifics. So thank you.
Next slide. Go ahead. I like that slide too. We can thank the graphic design team in helping us with that slide. So this is just a different view. It's showing it from fiscal year 2027 to fiscal year 2020 or 2032, and the 6-year totals by buildings, parks, and transportation. And you notice we put them in different buckets than, say, impact fees, right? Impact fees is fire, police, transportation, and parks. Fire and police mainly are buildings. Fire has some equipment that they're allowed to do for impact fees, but for the most part, capital assets for the general fund are buildings, parks, and transportation, or streets. Any question on that slide? Next slide, please. So we want to talk a little bit about the revenues. We've discussed this with you before, but kind of the revenues that contribute to the capital asset plan and to CIP. So those funding sources are Class C, the general fund, impact fees, and the transportation fund. The transportation fund consists of both the fourth of the fourth and the quarter of the quarter. These projections are based on a 2% inflationary factor. The general fund portion also includes the Funding Our Future, because technically it is general fund monies. This does not include bonds and does not include grants in these projections. As you can see, the amount is not $1.5 billion. Next slide, please. So this shows the variance in the capital assets by existing assets, improvements in new assets, and the revenues that we receive, and then the projected shortfall over the 6-year period of time. Very telling, and we've never had this data before, but this is very telling data. So that's all I have for you. Council, do you have any questions of us?
Council members, anybody online, any questions?
None here, thank you.
Council members in the room, questions, comments? 1.5 billion hanging out in your back pocket somewhere?
Well done. Now I have a lot more homework, but well done.
Yeah, I have to say that this, like I said, this wasn't just the finance department. This was, I've been with the city for quite a while, and this was the best project that I have seen come together citywide with all of the departments. It was amazing. It was amazing, and I'm very proud of it. I think you should be proud of it. We've been trying to do a capital asset plan since before I was the CFO. So, like I said, I think the city in general should be completely proud of this. So thank you.
Thank you so much to everyone who was involved in putting forward this plan. It is a sobering plan as we see the path ahead of us, but I'm grateful that we have such a comprehensive path forward, maybe not a path forward to fully funding the plan and addressing all of the needs, whether they're new or existing or maintenance, but I appreciate that now we have a scope of the challenge before us and can begin to move accordingly. All right, without any other questions or comments, I think that concludes this portion of the agenda. Thank you, and thank you to everybody who worked on this plan. Okay, I'm going to keep marching us forward to item 6, which is closely connected, of course, to capital asset plan. That's a resolution regarding the capital improvement plan. Kate is our frequent flyer at the table and will provide a brief introduction. Is Rachel here? Yes. Yep. And Rachel will stay also at the table, CIP program manager. Kate, over to you.
Great, thank you. So annually, the council appropriates overall funding as part of the annual budget to the CIP or capital improvement program. And then before September 1st, you make specific project allocations. This is the first briefing of several to get you to where you feel comfortable with your project allocations. CIP is an open and competitive process where residents, local organizations, and city departments submit project applications, and these applications are reviewed first by a residential advisory committee and then by the mayor. Those recommendations have been provided to you. You get to review them, make your own recommendations, and move forward with your decisions. Today, we will have a presentation from finance regarding the CIP process. Next, any questions you may have, key projects you'd like to discuss, and possibly, if we want to, but we really don't need to, start looking at the funding log. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present the fiscal year 2026-2027 capital improvement projects budget. I'm Rachel Molinari. I'm the capital improvement program manager. Today, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the CIP program, highlight several accomplishments and process improvements from the past year, and walk through the FY27 applications, the available funding, and the mayor's recommended projects. Next slide. The capital asset planning team is part of the finance department and consists of 5 full-time staff members. Our team manages the city's capital asset plan and the annual capital improvement program from beginning to end. This includes soliciting and reviewing applications, coordinating with departments, supporting the evaluation process, preparing funding recommendations and assisting the council through the final budget allocation. We also oversee the capital budgeting, forecasting, reporting, project tracking, and financial compliance within Workday. In addition, our team manages the city's impact fee program and provides staff support for the Capital Asset Planning Committee and the Community Development and Capital Improvement Program CDCIP Board. Our overall goal is to provide reliable financial analysis and a coordinated, transparent process that helps align the city's capital investments with its long-term priorities. Next slide. We have identified several meaningful opportunities to improve efficiency during this year's process. The CDCIP board was the first city board or commission to use AI to assist with drafting meeting minutes. So we still review and finalize the minutes, but these initial drafts have saved a tremendous amount of time for staff for each board meeting. The Capital Asset Planning Committee also completed its project presentations, scoring, and deliberations more quickly than it has in the previous 2 years. And that's because the committee members now have a deeper understanding of how the process works, and the procedures have become more standardized. And this is, as the process becomes more established, we just expect more efficiencies in the future years. Next slide. As Mary Beth highlighted, one of our team's most significant accomplishments was leading the development of the city's first capital asset plan. But we also updated Title 57, Chapter 10, which establishes the city's capital asset management policy and governs the annual CIP process and the role of the Capital Asset Planning Committee. The CAP Committee charter was updated to streamline the membership, the meetings, and the procedures. And we also researched potential updates to the city's CIP guiding policies in Resolution 29. And the CAP Committee has endorsed several proposed changes, which are now moving through additional review. The potential updates to Resolution 29 include updates to the city's cost overrun policy and additional project prioritization criteria related to water and energy conservation and other city objectives. Next slide. Mary Beth already covered this slide, so unless there's more questions on it, we can skip it. The Capital Asset Planning Committee provides a cross-departmental guidance for the city's capital asset plan and CIP. The committee reviews internal city capital project requests before they move on to the city CIP board. And they score and rank those requests using the established evaluation criteria and advise on broader capital planning, management, and policy matters. Because this committee includes representatives from departments throughout the city, it provides a coordinated citywide perspective rather than evaluating projects only within one individual department priority. And so this structure supports the transparency, collaboration, and data-driven recommendations to the board, to the mayor, and to the council. Next slide. This slide shows the departments and divisions represented on the committee. I won't read everyone off, but there are voting and non-voting representatives from finance, the mayor's office, CAN, public services, public lands, fire, IMS, public utilities, economic development, sustainability, the CRA, police, and the attorney's office. And again, this broad representation is important because capital projects often affect several departments. And this structure allows the city to consider financial, operational, legal, and infrastructure and community impacts together while evaluating projects. Next slide. This map is, so now we're getting into FY27 specific information. This slide shows the geographic distribution of all of the applications we received this year. It provides a useful visual representation where capital investments have been requested throughout the city. And it's kind of hard to see on there, but there is a concentration of dots along the highways there that represents citywide projects as opposed to a location with just one specific site. And the link is publicly available on the slide there. Next slide. For FY27, the city received a total of 74 applications. 32 of those were internal city applications and 42 were submitted by constituents. Together, those applications requested approximately $58 million in funding. And the mayor's recommended budget includes 25 projects totaling approximately $34.8 million. 5 of the recommended projects are constituent applications totaling approximately $2.3 million in recommended funding. Next slide. This chart breaks down the requests by department and division. Public lands and transportation represent the largest shares of requested funding, followed by engineering, facilities, streets, and fire. Next slide. The constituent applications, there's a total request for $19.8 million in funding, and transportation-related projects represent slightly more than half of that funding requested, and public lands and engineering projects represent approximately a quarter of that total amount. Next slide.
Councilmember Napier Pierce.
I just had a very quick question. So the previous slide, how does that compare to previous years?
It's in line. There's always around, I would say between 30 and 60 constituent applications. Projects have gotten more expensive, so I would have to research more on that dollar amount, but it's in line with what we've seen in previous years.
I just meant proportion of transportation to public lands and things. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's on track. There's always traffic calming related requests that we see, and that is the majority of requests that come in. Next slide. Here we have the internal request for $38.2 million. Public lands represents the largest portion of that, followed by transportation, facilities, streets, engineering, and fire.
Sorry, just to interrupt. It looks like Councilmember Young has a question online. Councilmember Young.
Thank you. Sorry to disrupt. Going back to the map that you showed, is the map comprehensive of all the proposals, or is it just those that are recommended?
It's all the applications received.
Okay. I'll follow up. I think I have a couple of constituent applications that I'm not seeing, and maybe I'm just looking in the wrong spot.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions on the map.
Okay.
Okay. We can go to the next slide. The CIP budget includes approximately $12.8 million in ongoing expenses. Approximately $10.1 supports existing bonds. $2.5 million supports ongoing needs for leases, maintenance of facilities, urban trails, vacant and leased city property maintenance. And included on the bottom there are the yearly breakout of the special properties. All the details for the information in this chart are in the CIP book, pages 19 to 24. And next slide. So there is $34.8 million in available funding this year. This slide shows the breakdown by funding source, leaving no remaining balance. Next slide. And here we show the mayor's recommended allocation by department and applicant type. So 93% of the recommended funding supports the internal city projects, while approximately 7% supports the constituent projects. And historically, the constituent projects have received about 10% of total CIP funding in the past. So this is kind of generally consistent with what we've seen. The largest recommended allocation are associated with public lands and engineering, followed by transportation and public services related projects. Next slide. This slide and the next slide show the projects recommended by the mayor in order of the CDCIP board's ranking. This first slide is the first 13 projects. And then if we go to the next slide, it's the remaining ones. The light green are the constituent projects. So like I mentioned before, there are 5 of them. 3 of the 5 recommended projects focus on pedestrian and traffic safety near schools. And then the final 2 projects on the list, the $6 million for Glendale Park and the $50,000 for bike racks, were added through the mayor's recommended budget. They were not applications ranked by the advisory board. Next slide. And then lastly, I do want to point out our CDCIP board included 2 contingencies with their recommendations to the mayor. The first being if additional funding was available, they wanted that funding to be allocated to projects in accordance with their ranked list. And if less funding were the case, they wanted that to be reduced proportionately across all recommended projects. They also opted to recommend full funding for fewer projects as opposed to using the approach of what we call spreading the peanut butter, and partially funding more projects with the limited funds available. And they also focus their constituent project recommendations on safety projects near schools. That's all that I have in my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Council members, any questions? Thank you for this thorough review. I would like to, and thank you to staff for printing off this funding log for us. I'd like to see if there's anything burning regarding this funding log that people would like to name now, but also recognizing that we don't have a couple of our members here, so would prefer that we avoid in-depth discussions of any one project at this point in time. How do folks feel about that?
I support.
Okay. Okay, and we do have a couple more hearing or conversations scheduled for these CIP projects. But any questions of staff right now before we,
No question. I just really appreciate the overview of the whole CIP program and stuff in conjunction with the CAP plan. It was really nice to see that and realize that your question about the constituents, that has always been kind of a pressing question. How should we divide up the funding for constituents or not? And we've gone through that iteration a number of times, but I'm always kind of want to relook at that. Do we set aside money for constituents only projects, and how do we grade them compared to the mayor's only? Because a lot of the transportation and engineering and public lands are projects that the constituents would also ask for, but these are like extras. So it's a great discussion, but I appreciate the history on some of the slides, and also just the breakdown of who gets what. So thank you very much again. Appreciate it.
thank you so much. Okay, Kate gets to leave the table now. Just all right, so we're a little ahead of schedule. Hopefully that's not an issue. Next up is a board appointment, item number 7. This is for board appointment interviews for the Community Development and Capital Improvement Programs Advisory Board. So this is the advisory board that weighs in on exactly the CIP projects and proposals that we heard about earlier. I'm wondering, even though we are early, do we have some folks online that we can begin to interview? And we have one person, someone in person. 2. Great. Overachievers. I love this. So I'm going to ask each of you to, I don't know who's in the room, but we'll start over here. Your name. Go ahead and step forward, and you'll have about a minute to. Yeah, let's bring all 3 up together, actually. That's a great suggestion. Yep, take a seat. And the way this will work is I would love to just, are you all here for the Capital Improvement Advisory Programs Board? Oh, great. Okay, we're all in the right place. Excellent. Would love for each of you to just take a minute, share your name, and share, why are you interested in serving on this board? We'll start with the gentleman right here.
Thank you. So my name is Rob Eccles. I'm a resident of Sugar House, and I got interested in this. We do commercial landscape. I just came from work, so we're in my shirt. But we do commercial landscape, and so
Make sure your microphone is on. Just push the button.
I'm sorry. I'm not used to Oh, there we go. Oh, I have a big booming voice. Sorry. Anyway, my name is Robert Eccles. I live in Sugar House. I work for a commercial landscape and snow removal company. And over the last, I've been there for 16 years. I've gotten a chance to work with a lot of cities around the valley with landscape projects. And it's kind of been on the back of my mind, just interested in how things run and what gets approved, what doesn't, what you're allowed to do, what you're not. Recently, I was involved in a couple of a little higher profile ones, one in Holiday with the city of Holiday for the Holiday Hills development, with Woodbury and Mill Rock, and then also one here in Salt Lake City that caused a lot of problems. Trolley Square, there was a lot of emotion about that. But I got really involved with Tony, with the city, with trees, urban forestry, and had a chance to just kind of see how some of the process works on the backside, and it was really interesting. And I'm interested because I'm vested in Salt Lake. My family's vested here, and I just want to be a part of the decision-making process. I feel like I bring a lot of skill to this with I know you guys don't do just landscape, but there are things that are improvements that I'd like to be a part of decision-making for budget reasons. So, yeah, sorry, I took more than a minute.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Eccles.
My name's Brooke Bryn. I am an engineer living in Rose Park, and if not for Salt Lake City, I wouldn't have realized I was queer, and it feels like home to me, and I want it to be home for everyone.
Thank you, Brooke.
I'm Mitchell Roundy. I'm an attorney in Central City. I grew up in the Salt Lake Valley, lived in Salt Lake City proper for a couple of years now, and I just love the city, and I'm just very interested in giving back to my community and hearing what sort of ideas other members of the community have for community improvement.
Thank you, Mitchell. I believe we have somebody who's also joining us online. Mai, would love for you to just take a minute, introduce yourself, and share why you might be interested in serving on this board. And then Councilmember Young, I'll be sure to bring your voice into the conversation as well. Mai?
Okay. Good evening, council members. My name is May Helms. I've lived in the Avenues with my husband and 2 kids for the past 11 years. Recently, I've really been excited about, being more involved locally. This was after I had the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. and advocate for medical research and to talk with our representatives on how NIH dollars directly help our communities back home. I thought that this was incredibly rewarding, and this experience is what sparked the desire in me to get more involved with this committee and more local projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Councilmember Young.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all of our individuals for being willing to give your time and your expertise to Salt Lake City to be able to help inform what our next steps are. I will say as a personal request, it was mentioned earlier by Councilmember Dugan, but I think that one of the biggest challenges we have right now is that we have a really robust list of city projects and city needs. And we also have a really great engagement from our community who were also identifying opportunities for improvement. And so we, and me personally, appreciate your lens to how we balance those two moving forward in terms of both recognizing city priorities while also making sure we continue to honor the voice of our constituents. So thank you again. again, appreciate it and the opportunity to, share a minor request.
Thank you, Councilmember Young. Any other comments? Questions?
So what do you, talk to me about, being in the committee and advisory role. You guys are putting a lot of time and consideration into these applications that come through, but ultimately, it's the mayor and the council or the mayor's going to make a final recommendation and council's going to make the final decision. How do you, what goes into your thought process? How do you, approach this position, knowing that, you're making a recommendation instead of the final decision?
Is that down the line to each applicant? Okay.
Hit the button. I think that ultimately, I'm listening to your question as you were asking it. I was thinking, when I make a decision for me or for a client, on behalf of a client or in conjunction with a client, you always start with this, and then there are restrictions, parameters, things that bring it to budget, and it starts to scale down, or you have to restrict because of easements or whatever it is, right? You have to readjust and reassess, and we always call it just being flexible and open, trying to just evaluate what the base needs are, and then what else you can get, what are the objectives. That's what we do, or that's what I do through work with clients. Just looking at the ultimate, the end game, and how to get there, what restrictions and things we have to be flexible on. That's my answer.
Okay.
As a systems engineer, I spend all day, every day looking at how component parts build larger systems that may have effects we want and may have effects we don't. And so I bring my methodology of systems analysis into determining what my recommendations would be, especially considering what I saw of the tight capital investment program budget that seems to be projected over the next couple of years, in making targeted investments to shift communities, cultures, not necessarily like faiths, but maybe how often you see neighbors and say hi, or how often you feel you can walk to the grocery store rather than drive. Those sorts of shifts that will eventually lead to greater community participation from the entire city.
Ultimately, I think the way I would approach the role is it's an advisory board at its core. I feel like the job I intend to do and hope to do is to provide you all in the mayor's office with the best information possible and what I and the rest of the advisory board believe to be the best projects to fund.
And then I think we've got someone online too.
Oh, great.
Okay, hello. In my work as a researcher at the university, I submit and review technical proposals to federal agencies and foundations. I also make recommendations for funding while hoping that my own proposals get funded. I also serve on the university's compliance committee to make sure federal guidelines are followed. And when there is ambiguity or disagreement, we work and strive to clarify these issues to move forward while giving consideration to practical realities of getting the work done. I see this board as a good place to apply my practical and analytical skills. The responsibilities that I understand that are associated with this role align well with my interests. I like becoming a domain expert of sorts through reading, research, and talking with others. I enjoy thoughtful discourse and being part of a team representing a unified front after the discussion is done. And I would like to work to make sure that recommendations are balanced, evidence-based, and well-reasoned. Thank you.
So just as a follow-up, is there anything any of you would like us to know? Because we don't always get a chance to talk with you about, and since we're kind of on different ends of the process, to different bookends, is there anything you want us to know as council members? when we consider your recommendations. Okay.
Oh, can I speak? I just wanted to apologize for not being able to be in person today. But once this meeting is scheduled on my calendar, I'm committed to, preparing ahead of time for the meetings and to make attending in person a priority. So I'm very sorry I can't be there tonight, but I will in the future if selected.
That's okay. We're glad that you can join us virtually.
That's right. All right. I just want to say thank you to each of you for stepping forward to be of service to Salt Lake City in sharing your insight, your expertise, and your good judgment as we weigh these projects that affect the future of our city. Yeah, Brooke?
I just wanted, I had an answer for Chris's question. But
Please do.
you can
Yes,
finish.
please.
Oh. Cornell Wetlands is really special to my family, so thanks.
What? Sorry, what is? Oh.
I'll just add, I'm just really excited for the opportunity to serve the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the way that it works is that you will be placed on the consent agenda for tonight's formal session. As my council member here likes to say, you do not need to be present to win. But if you would like to stay for that formal meeting at 7 o'clock, you are welcome to stay. But on behalf of all of us, thank you for stepping forward to serve Salt Lake City in this volunteer fashion. It makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
We may have some other CDIP Programs Advisory Board members join us in just a little bit. I know we're running ahead of schedule. We'll make some space for them if they are able to join us. Let's move on to the next item, which is item 8, which is the board appointment interview for the Fire Code Board of Appeals. I understand we've got some folks online. Let's see if we can. The first 3 are online. Great. Let's go ahead and do these one by one. And let's begin with Gerald Straybell. Share, tell us who you are and maybe a 1 minute about why you're interested in your background and how it aligns with serving on the Fire Code Board of Appeals.
Hello, can you see me all right? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I am currently fire marshal for Sandy City. Been in the fire service for 23 years now. I was past president of the Fire Marshals Association for the state of Utah, and I've served on a few of these boards in the past. Both my deputy, who you'll probably talk to in a minute or so, we actually have done this with one appeal down in American Fork not too many years ago. And so, yeah, hopefully you never need us, but we are very qualified in what we do. Before I was a firefighter, I worked in the fire sprinkler industry. So as far as the fire code goes regarding fire sprinklers, I'm very knowledgeable there, which has been an asset for us and actually our surrounding departments. So unless you have any questions on any of that, that's pretty much it.
What's the weirdest appeal you've ever presided over?
But the weirdest one? So interestingly enough, I was questioned about the placement of a fire hydrant. They wanted to argue that they wanted it further away from their home because they didn't want dogs in their yard.
I got to tell you, the fire hydrant's not going to stop. Moving the fire hydrant is not going to stop them. So.
Yeah. No, I know. That was literally. They wanted to appeal that hydrant because they didn't want the dog mess. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You can't make this stuff up.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Strebel. I believe that we have a Lincoln Paxman online. Lincoln, if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute, telling us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you're interested in serving on the Fire Code Board of Appeals.
Yeah, my name is Lincoln Paxman. I've been in the fire service for over 35 years, serving in many capacities. Recently, I've been serving in the Fire Marshal's Office for the last 3 years, focusing on hazardous materials code enforcement and dealing with many types of hazardous materials on our city. I have been on one appellate board where we listened to an appeal by a business, and it was regarding some hazardous materials. So they called me specifically for that hazardous materials. I've also been involved with writing Utah state law in the hazardous materials area, code enforcement, as well as national law. So I'm actively involved in the National Fire Protection Agency, and then also I've got proposals into the International Fire Code for future consideration.
Any fun questions from Councilmember Wharton?
Yeah, what's the most memorable appeal or weird appeal that you've presided over?
Well, I've only been in one. I didn't preside. I was just there to act as a expert in some hazardous materials concerns. And I think we're able to resolve those concerns. And there wasn't anything excitement about it. It was really technical and really boring.
Excellent. Okay.
We like technical and boring, especially in an appeals process. Thank you.
You bet.
Next, we'll move on to Donald Buckley, who I believe is online with us. Donald, take a minute. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you're interested in serving on this Board of Appeals.
I think Donald's muted. Maybe not.
Donald, are you there? All right. I get. Okay. So we're doing a little do-si-do. Are there two others online? Oh, yes. For the folks who were able to join us online, Gerald, Lincoln.
I am here. This is Don. I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't get my phone to unmute.
Oh, no worries. We're glad to have you, Donald, or Don. Go ahead and take a minute to introduce yourself, share a little bit about your background and why you're interested in serving on this board.
Yes, I apologize. My camera's not working either. I'm on my phone. I've been in the fire service for just a little over 35 years. I started as a volunteer in New Jersey. I currently am the Draper City Fire Marshal and have been for the last 20 years. I, too, along with Gerald, am a former president of the Fire Marshals Association. I'm also the chair of the Home Fire Sprinkler Coalition. I work very closely when we're working on codes and everything else. And I have not had the pleasure of serving on an appeals board. However, I deal with a lot of difficult projects on a regular basis. One you guys might be aware of is the Point. That happens to be mine to deal with down in Draper. So I deal with a lot of complicated projects, and yeah, I just want to be able to offer my expertise where I can.
I feel like he's answered my question. Enough said.
Any other questions from council members? Okay. And I think we just got one more person online with us. And is Matthew, are you with us online? Excellent.
Yep, I'm here.
So invite you to just take a minute to share a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you're interested in serving on the Fire Code Board of Appeals.
Okay, I've got about 16 and a half years in the fire service. I did 8 years with the State Fire Marshal's Office. I worked a year in Lehigh as a deputy fire marshal, and then I've been in American Fork as the fire marshal now for about 7 years and 4 months. So I have a few years of experience. I've also kind of participated on the board of the Fire Marshals Association. And my interest comes from the invite from Chief Allred. He asked me if I would be on the board, and he's willing to help out. And so I'd like to reciprocate that if possible.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Any questions? All right, and then I believe we have the last of our crew joining us online. Scott, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Take a minute, introduce yourself, and why you're interested in serving on this board.
I kind of just like Matt, I actually have 38 years of fire service. I spent 30 years on a fire engine, and then I retired, and then they asked me to come back as a fire inspector / deputy fire marshal. I've been back at Murray for about 7 years now, working in the fire marshal's office, working in code and inspections and all our new construction. And then I also do a little bit of fire investigation.
Thank you so much, Scott. Any fun questions?
Have you had an appeal before? Have you done an appeal before?
Have I been involved in any appeals? No.
Okay.
We usually, we have a lot of people that seem like they want to argue with us, but we try and educate as we inform them. We can show them the code. We can show them why we're reading it this way, and we haven't had an appeal in Murray at all.
Good. Well, I mean, I'd like to say I hope you get an interesting one, but since you're doing it for Salt Lake City, I hope they're all boring. And yeah, thank you for your willingness to serve Salt Lake.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for your willingness to step forward and serve on this Board of Appeals. You will be placed on the consent agenda this evening at 7 p.m. You're welcome to tune in online or in person if you'd like to, but you need not be present to win. We are grateful for your willingness to serve, and we'll approve your application this evening as part of that consent agenda. Thank you all so much. Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to do-si-do back to the Community Development and Capital Improvement Programs Advisory Board. Jordan Moss is here with us in person, and so Jordan, would love for you to just come forward at the table. Yep, step on up, come on down, Price is Right style. We don't have any appliances for you, but there are some capital improvement programs. Jordan, would love for you just to take a minute and share a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on this board. Please use the microphone.
Hello, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate everyone allowing me to be here. My name is Jordan Moss. I work in banking for about 10 years, the last 4 years specifically in portfolio management for the Community Reinvestment Act. I help manage a lot of affordable housing projects here in Salt Lake City, and that's one of the ways in which I got familiar with the city and helped kind of understand the organizations and the way that kind of the collaborative effort that's necessary to create kind of change in the community. And so bringing that passion, as long as with working with grants and decisioning on grants as well, to hopefully bring some of that knowledge and experience to kind of continue the good work in the city. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Any questions, comments? All right, I believe we have another person who has joined us online. Josh Strickland, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, Josh. Go ahead and just, share a little bit about yourself, take a minute and, why you're interested in serving on this board.
Yeah, I am a financial analyst here at Wheeler Machinery. Unlike some of the previous interviews, I'm actually not originally from Salt Lake and only moved here recently, but I think partially some of my college experience and then being at Wheeler now as a financial analyst, I think there's things I want to learn more about the budgeting process, and I think maybe learning, how governments work with grants and whatnot at a young age. I think it's something I'm kind of interested in diving more into. So.
Thank you so much. I have a question for both of you. This is a collaborative body. Have you had any experience on committees or anything like that? And how's it gone?
I'll jump in. I recently transitioned to a role. I work at Ally Bank with our corporate social responsibility team, and we facilitate kind of all the foundation grants. And so we have a committee that intakes all of the grants from all over the country, and we have kind of a matrix that we work through that helps decision on those grants. And so that's kind of the main experience I have working with grants and kind of understanding how to best facilitate which grants are going to work for in our cases is either financial education, workforce development, or things of that nature. So that's usually that's kind of some of the experience I have. Yeah.
Josh?
And then so I do not have any specific grant experience, but serving on boards at Ole Miss, I went to the University of Mississippi. I helped manage a $600,000 portfolio of real money, which is donated by the Tennessee Valley Authority, and I got the opportunity to be on that board and make investment decisions and present it to our board of advisors, which at the time were ex-investment bankers. I'm not sure if they are anymore, but I think. I just mentioned that because I think them having that background kind of sparked a lot of questions, and really being detailed in what we present and what kind of data we pull. So I think that I was in a few other clubs as well, but I would say that's probably a board that I had experience serving on.
Thank you. I was more just interested if you play well with others, and it seems like you both will. So congratulations.
Councilmember Dugan.
I'm just really appreciative of the younger generation stepping up. I am on the other end of the generations, and it's great to see both the two of you and also the four previous ones stepping up to the plate on this one, because it's a big endeavor to step into this role and give us your voice, because that's what we want. So appreciate it very much. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. You'll hear my final spiel, which is that I shared to the others, but you'll be placed on tonight's consent agenda, the formal meeting that takes place at 7 p.m. You're welcome to stick around for that formal meeting or join us online, but you do not need to be present to win. So you'll be approved as part of that consent agenda. And thank you so much to all of the folks who have stepped forward to serve on a board, and thank you for being here as well. All right, and thank you, council members, and Councilmember Wharton, special acknowledgement for the fun questions you asked. Moving on to item 9, report of the chair and vice chair. I don't believe there's anything to report. Item 10, report and announcements from the executive director. Any announcements? Any reports? All right, the council work session is now adjourned, and we will have our formal meeting at 7 p.m.